I'm going to pick up today in the series that we were in called Choices, and hopefully we can leave here today in this terrible, horrible, rainy, nice, beautiful weather, having been encouraged and hopefully lifted up. I used to hate going to church and leaving beat up, feeling bad. And so hopefully what we talk about today, we will learn something about ourselves and then also be lifted up and encouraged to follow through. If you've been following along, I'm in Genesis, and today I'm going to be in Genesis chapter 40. And what's going on in our story is Joseph, the story of Joseph. And as Joseph has been given this vision or this dream of who he is and what his life should be, And I think we can all relate to that, because I think deep down inside of us, we all have this seed that God planted somewhere on what our lives should be and what we think our lives should look like. And when as we start on this journey, like in Joseph's case, he was 17 when he started. And you know how it is when you're 17, man. It's like you've got this dream and nothing can slow you down and nothing can stop you. But for me and for most people, the same thing that happened to Joseph, like he had brothers, right? And brothers always get in the way. No. As Joseph started his journey into this, he went and shared with his brothers what his dream was, so they decided they were going to kill him. And they threw him in a pit and sold him into slavery. So his story didn't take off like he imagined it would when he was 17. And then as he was sold into slavery, he was taken down to Egypt. So he not only was in prison, but he was taken out of his home. And he was taken to Egypt. There he found himself in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar was head of the guard in Egypt. And so as he began to serve in Potiphar's house, he decided that he would serve with all of who he was, that he didn't conform and become his circumstance. And that's what we've been talking about in this series. We have a choice to make through our whole lives. We can either live our destiny and live as the people we were created to be, or we can become our circumstance. It's our choice. And every one of us have that choice. And the problem I see in America today is that most people become their circumstance. They fall into their circumstance and they become their circumstance. And it's so frustrating to see all of this potential that people have. And instead of living who God created us to be, we live according to our circumstance. But Joseph didn't do that. He lived out who he was meant to be by God. And so even in Potiphar's house, God's blessing followed Joseph. So everything that he touched, he became successful. So Potiphar puts him in charge of everything that he owns, of everything that he has. And so you would think Joseph's he's getting moving, he's getting on the right track. But as most of our lives go, every time we get on our feet and find that mountaintop, what happens? There's a valley on the other side, right? Every time. So this happens to Joseph too. He gets accused of raping Potiphar's wife, falsely accused. Potiphar has him thrown into prison. Joseph finds himself at the bottom again, maybe even worse off this time because he's in a pit, he's in the dungeon, he's in the prison. But what does Joseph do? He stays true to who God created him to be. He keeps that vision of who he really is in his heart. He doesn't give up, he doesn't quit, he doesn't lay down, he doesn't whine and complain. Now, we talked about this before, but we catch Joseph on the highlight days, right? Because I guarantee you there was some whining and complaining going on. I mean, human speaking, like he didn't just go into prison and go, "Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here, guys." Especially if he was wrongly accused, right? No, but Joseph sets back, he takes a deep breath, he realizes his circumstance, his situation, and he makes a choice. And that choice is to live who he was created to be instead of to become his circumstance. Well, before long, the prison overseer, the prison guard, see that everything Joseph's around and everything Joseph touches is blessed by God. And he has success. And so he puts him in charge of all of the prisoners in the prison. So Joseph and the prison is blessed. And it says that the head jailer, he had no concern for anything that was under Joseph's care, because he knew that if Joseph was in charge of it, it was going to be a success. See, God's blessing follows the vision that he puts in our heart. And the only thing that can stop God's blessing from pouring out in our lives is us conforming to our circumstances. It doesn't matter what our circumstance is, as long as we choose to live and become the people and live as the people we were created to be, children of the Most High God, everything we touch will be success. Now, it may not look like a success, because I would say a guy that was enslaved, sold, taken out of his own home, put into prison, that would say that guy's not very successful. But anybody that knew Joseph knew that was exactly the opposite, that Joseph was extremely successful. No matter where Joseph ended up, no matter where he landed, no matter what the circumstance, Joseph became a success. We were talking about this the last time we were in this, the last message in this series, and we lose track of time. Like, we live in a drive-through world, right? We want it now. We don't want to wait on it. We want to drive through, honk our horn, yell and scream and gripe at everybody and get what we want now. God gave me a vision at 17, and by 18 I should have it. Right? But how many of you guys have figured out in life that's not the way it works? That it just doesn't work out that way, right? That it takes time to develop character. It also takes testing to develop character. Character is not developed without obstacles in our way, without setbacks. Mountains are not beautiful until you know what a valley is. It's funny that as we go through life, the more we experience tragedy, the more we appreciate the good times. And I think that's how character is developed. I think it's how we learn to grow and to be strong and to make right choices and right decisions. So time is passing for Joseph. Man, he starts out at 17, and like, this is a lot of years down the line. Years, not weeks, not months, but years. How many of you guys would still be all like, man, God is so cool, praise God, we worship God, if you were wrongly imprisoned for years? Years. If you were taken out of your home and your father was told that you're dead for years, that you were taken and sold into slavery for years, would we be like, I get a little angry at God like when I stump my toe. God, why did you do that to me? I'm your suffering servant. But Joseph's doing this years. And in chapter 40 of Genesis, this starts out sometime after this, which means more time has passed. Like, it's going further and further along. Sometime after this. He'd been in this prison a while. And what happens then is Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, he has these two servant guys that work for him. One is his head cook, head baker, and the other one is his cupbearer. The guy brings him his booze. His bootlegger. No. He has his cupbearer and he has his baker, and they commit an offense against Pharaoh. And so when you commit an offense against Pharaoh, he doesn't fire you, he puts you into prison. And so he sticks these guys into prison, and they're there And they're there in prison, and he puts them into the prison where Joseph has charge, where Joseph was confined. In verse 4 it says, the captain of the guard appointed Joseph to be with them, and he attended them. And they continued for some time in custody. Again, man, more time. It's just not working out. But then this event happens. It says one day they both had a dream. The same night, they both had a dream. Now here's one of the, and when Joseph came to this the next morning, he could see they were troubled. So he asked Pharaoh's officers who were there with him in custody in his master's house. He says, why are your faces downcast today? And they said to him, we've had dreams and there's no one to interpret them. And Joseph said this to them. This is important. You might want to check this one out. He says, do not interpretations belong to God? He still has that God-centered life. He still doesn't look at this as him or his pity party. He says, aren't interpretations, don't they belong to God? He says, so tell me your dream. And so the chief cupbearer, he told him his dream to Joseph, and he said, in my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, and its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said to him, turn the page. This is the interpretation. The 3 branches are 3 days. And in 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you shall place Pharaoh's cup in his hands as formerly. And when you are his cupbearer, only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh, and so to get me out of this house. For I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here I have done nothing that they should put me into the pit. Then the chief baker saw the interpretation was favorable. Isn't that the way it goes? You got some good news. I'm going to get in line and get me some of this. Here's my dream. And he tells him his dream. He says, I had a dream and there were 3 baskets on my head. And in the uttermost basket, there was all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on my head. And Joseph answered and said, this is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. And he's thinking, yeah. And in 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree. That's not good. And the birds will eat the flesh from you. Wow. But here's the thing. In 3 days, exactly what Joseph said would happen. Exactly like he said it was happen. And he says in verse 20, he restored the chief cupbearer in his position, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hands, but he hanged the chief baker as Joseph interpreted the dream. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. What? Then this would make me mad. I mean, I'd have a problem. They might want to tighten up the prison security system at this point. The next verse says it's 2 years later from that. And then the next order of events start to happen. But I want to talk about this dream, this gift that Joseph had been given by God. And I want to ask some pretty hard questions. I think this whole talk, this whole series, I've told you, I think it's for me. I think that thing that God's put in us, who we really are. And only you know that thing, you know. And you know the frustration of your destiny being like keeps slipping from you. Like you get close to it and you get a grab and then all of a sudden it slips from you. But to achieve our destinies and who we were created to be, those things have a lot to do with the gifts that God has given us. And a lot of times we don't really, I guess, appreciate these gifts that God has given us, or we don't see them as gifts. And I wouldn't even begin to tell you or know what your gifts would be. I mean, it's hard enough to figure out what your own gifts are, much less gifts for someone else. And I'm not getting super spiritual and like well, I got the gift of prophecy or tongues or whatever. I'm talking about your gifts as a human being that make you up and make you who you are. And what I've found in myself is that when I find myself in that prison, in that wronged prison place where I don't deserve to be, and people let me down because I think we all kind of bring people in and out of our lives that help us achieve who we're going to be. Like, I think we're pretty self-centered. Speaking for myself, I would say that I tend to get along better with people who would benefit and promote my kingdom, my life mission or my life goals. But when people don't help out or work against that place that I think I should be going, then I tend to withhold my gifts from those people. Anybody ever do that? Like, you kind of, we like to use our gifts and give gifts to people who treat us good. That's what I found. And but Joseph, he did something that was just crazy to me. He took his gift and he used it in his circumstance, and at the same time gave God all the credit. Like, this isn't really my gift, this is God's gifts. And so he didn't stop just because he was in prison. He didn't stop using the gifts he was given. And that's something that just really impressed me, because I think about how we withhold when we're not happy in our circumstance. How we don't fully commit and give ourselves. Last night as I was thinking about this message, God was showing me that everybody has this sense, like God is in the world, right? God's not just involved in the Christian world. Like, human beings, because God has restored this world, this creation to himself, human beings have this sense of life, of who they should be, of who they are. And so we're all kind of on our own journeys, and that journey is given by God. But what I started to realize is that if I don't acknowledge that life is from God, then I end up self-centered and extremely frustrated in the journey because I try to make everything happen. But when I realize that it's God's gift and it's God who created me and shaped me and made me, then God put this thing in my heart to do, that he showed me who I was, that as long as I give God the credit, as long as I operate in God's gifts, it doesn't matter what my circumstance is, it all feels the same. But I have to be honest, because I don't know any other way to be. I get extremely frustrated. I get frustrated. I'm sure you get frustrated too on your journey. I think people who don't acknowledge God are people who start this and quit that, and they can't find their place in the world, and they're always chasing the wind because they're looking for the right circumstance. I want to tell you, man, that in my journey to be who I was created to be, the last 10 years of this place has killed me. The way it is, man, I mean, it ain't been easy. I've seen thousands of people come in this place and leave. And see, when you just come here and it's just church for you, and you're like picking a church shopping, it's like shopping at Walmart. I mean, you're just, whatever. But for me, it's personal. For me, it's everything. It's my life. It's my destiny. It's who I was created to be. It's what I was created for. And so I put much into it. And I care much about all of it, about every person and every soul. I care about your lives. I care what you do. I care about your struggles. I care about your addictions. I care about your problems. I care about your finances. It destroys me to be so helpless to see things about you and not be able to do anything about it, and then to see people make strides and then come and then leave. It's crushing. It's crushing. To see the finances, and the finances of this are dependent upon your finances. I see your finances tank out. The finances of our church just tank out. We operate on a budget that's in the last 5 years gone down by about 75%. I mean, we just really don't have money for anything. I mean, there's just no money. And so trying to lead and trying to be positive and trying to encourage and trying to uplift, it stinks. And then you get angry and then you get frustrated and then you just you want to hold your gifts back. It's like, why should I put all this energy and all this effort into this every week, and people come in and try us out and leave? And so it's hard. And man, I'll tell you, more than once I've said, I'm done. I say it all the time. I don't say it to anybody but Celia. She hears it all the time. Sick of it. I'm done. But see, you do that on your jobs too. You come in from work and you're sick of it and you're done and people don't treat you right and nothing's working out. And so you get where I'm coming from. We all have these things going on in our lives, don't we? Where we just get fed up. But then I think I didn't ask for this destiny. This is what God said. Now, let me be straight up. There are a lot of churches that are started with good ideas. Okay? And good ideas only last as long as things are working out. But when God places your destiny, places you in a place and gives you that dream, that vision, and He does this in us. And I don't care if it's a church like it is for me, whatever it is for you. When God puts that in you, you don't have a choice. And so you stay when it's tough. And you stay through the valleys, and you enjoy and you rock out the mountaintops. But you stay through the hard times, and you continue to give your gift away even when you're in that place that you don't feel like it. Because God is just bigger than all of that. You don't have to be enjoying the prison. You don't have to be enjoying being jacked. But you have to walk in hope. See, the difference between understanding your God vision and just coming up with a good idea and a good plan for your life, the difference between the two is hope. When God places that vision in you, there's always hope. Because no matter what goes through, no matter how bad it gets, I mean, if it's just me and Celia and she's telling me to turn it down, I don't care because I know we're where we're supposed to be. Amen. And there's hope. But if it's a good idea, if you've got your own plan, if you're becoming who you think, is a good, whatever's a good idea, let me tell you that when things don't work out, there's nothing that's assuring you that it will work out. But when you're in God's plan, you're assured that it's going to work out. Now, what is work out defined as? Man, I don't know, but I'd like to. I don't know what worked out means, but I do know that when it works out in the will of God, it's better. It's just better. It's where it's supposed to be, and you can find peace in the middle of that. See, there's peace in the chaos when God has you in that place. Joseph, man, if this was his plan and his circumstance, he would have been frustrated. He'd been ready to quit. He'd have been like, I'm done. Man, I'm just going to sit on this rock until I die, and that's it. But that wasn't what Joseph did. He's still using his gifts. And not only is he using his gifts, he's telling people when he's using them, this is God. This is what God does. He's not taking credit for this. He's still on his destiny because what Joseph has seen, and he has hope that what he dreamed and he envisioned when he was 17 years old, he has hope that because God gave him that dream and God showed him what that dream meant, that no matter what happened, no matter that his brothers sold him into slavery, no matter that Potiphar's wife accused him of rape, no matter that he ended up in prison and the stinking cupbearer jacked him on his little deal that he worked out, he's still on the road to being who God created him to be. And so as I look at my life and as you look at yours, I'm just giving you my example. As you look at your life and you look at your destiny and you look at that thing inside you that you know you were created to be and that thing that you were created to do, and you ask yourself, is this something that if I don't do it, I'm going to die? I have to do this. Because when God puts that thing in us, we don't have other choices. That vision of what could be and what should be that drives us and makes us get up every day and come back and do it again and do our best and do the very best we can possibly do with whatever it is we have to work with. Or we can make the other choice and we can just quit. I mean, people do it all the time, right? Marriage gets tough, quit. Raising kids gets tough, quit. Job gets tough, quit. Being a responsible person's tough, quit. Addictions are killing me, quit. I mean, just give up, throw it in, just go be. It's hard. I'm telling you, the path to who you were created to be is not easy. And as we learned in this story, people aren't here to help you. But isn't that kind of my responsibility anyway? When do we take responsibility for our own lives? At what point do we say, the cupbearer jacked me, but I'm still responsible for my own life. I'm still responsible for my own destiny. Now, the kingdom of heaven, the way it works is we should build up and encourage one another, and we should contribute to each other's destiny. But even in church, I've found that doesn't always work. Anybody else? It doesn't always work. Even in family, I found out that doesn't always work. But what I do know is that God is for me, not against me, and that if I will take responsibility for my own destiny, and that if I will commit everything I do to God and to His will and to do it His way, that was it they said, it says in the Old Testament, your plans will succeed. Commit everything to the Lord and your plans will succeed. My favorite verse in the New Testament, my favorite little exchange in the New Testament, is everybody was talking about Jesus to his followers, and he says, who do people say that I am? And they said, well, some say you're this, and some say you're that, and some say you're this, and some say you're that. And Jesus says, who do you say I am? And he says, you're the Messiah, you're the Son of the living God. And he says, you're blessed because flesh and blood didn't reveal that to you, but my Father in heaven. And later on, as they commit and follow Jesus because of who God showed them that they were in Him, it gets tough. And instead of being the greatest, being on the winning team and having the thousands and the multitude and the fame and everybody knew who you were and you had to fight your way through the crowds, everybody left. I went through one time in the New Testament and circled every place that said crowds. The crowds falling, crowds. And then at the end, man, it was down to nobody. And Jesus turns around and He looks at me and says, you going too? And I think that's the choice we have to make. We have to make that choice today. God is sitting there saying, look, you were all in when it was fame and everything was good and awesome and hot and great and cool. But where the crowds start going, are you going too? Are you out too? Are you with them? And the apostles look at Him and they said, where else would we go? You're the Messiah. What else would we do? What else would I do? If I wasn't walking in God's will for my life, what is my option? What is my alternative? What else can I do? See, I don't have any other option. There is no plan B. My dad, man, he always wore me out. We were starting a church, and I'm telling you, I had the flakiest life you could ever imagine. I mean it. I was here and there and just all over the map. I've done everything. I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. I've been and done everything. So we started a church, and Dad's like, son, what are you going to do if that doesn't work out? Dad's always about plan B, you know. But I told him, man, there ain't no plan B. This is it. Where else would I go? What else would I do? Well, am I just going to run from God? I've seen people do that. I've never seen that work out. What else are you going to do? So you can choose today to be bitter and angry and whatever. Or you can choose to walk into the destiny that God has called you, that you know deep down inside that this is the very thing that you were created to be. And whatever that is. And know that is God's plan for you. And that He has gifted you for that plan. And no matter what your circumstance, I don't care what your circumstances are irrelevant. Do you understand that? When we walk in God's plan, circumstances become irrelevant. Because we walk in the hope of knowing that the Creator of all things, the Master of the universe, the one who holds life in His very hands, the one who loves you and has given Himself that you can have life, is for you and not against you. And He has a perfect plan for who you are. And He's not keeping it secret. You already know it. You already know deep inside what you're drawn to. You already know deep inside what it is that makes you tick, what you're passionate and driven for. I encourage you today to quit looking at your circumstance and start looking at your gift. And no matter what your circumstance is, if you use your gift in that circumstance, God's going to bless it. He loves us. And when we're down, and when we're beaten up, and when we're tired, and when we're rejected, when we're abandoned, when we're abused, when we're left, He loves us. He's never going to let go. He's never going to give up on you. There's no distance, no depth you can ever go to make His love for you ever change. Hopefully that encourages you. Hopefully it gives you hope. Because, man, it's rough right now, isn't it? And it's just tough. I mean, the economy's tough. Things are rough out there. But that doesn't mean God's checked out on us. Mountains and valleys. It's the ebbs and flows of life, man. It's just the way it works. We can choose it, though. We can choose to give up, or we can choose to stand up. Hopefully today you'll choose to stand up. So stand up with me. Let me pray for you.